most ABM programs are running at an account level still and haven't yet gotten down to that contact level. Being at that contact level of signals and running your account-based marketing program on top of contact level information is one of the things that helps you respond same day, move faster, and get your message in front of the exact right person instead of trying to guess who.
So Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me about the 2026 AI and ABM trends report. I want to start quite broad to begin with, and I suspect this is a question that's on a lot of people's mind with regards to AI content and differentiation. Obviously, AI has made it like super easy for anyone to produce B2B content, more so than at any point in history. But when organizations have access to the same tools and the same kinds of insights, it starts to converge. Have we created a problem that we didn't have before, and what can we do about it?
I think we had the problem before. I think there were great content marketers, great content writers, great content, and everything else. And I think we've just compounded it. That great content now stands out even more because there's so much more of everything else, right? That's clearly been created with AI, that's not been given any thought, that wasn't, there was no human in the loop, and it's very clear. So I think we've compounded a problem that was already there, but it's actually made it easier for those who really put in the work, put in the reps, put in the due diligence, really understand their audience, find the phrases that speak to them in the way that they speak, and use their language. And so it's just become so much more apparent when you find a piece of content that feels human, you instantly connect with it, that someone has really taken the time and care that it deserved, that was put into it.
Yeah, no, I really like what you're saying with the human in the loop aspect, and it's something that keeps coming up quite frequently. And when we were doing the report, we kind of found that the teams that had satisfaction with their ABM program and were using AI, they had like these very developed programs. They had people involved at every stage of the process, quite sophisticated systems in place. Whereas the teams that were saying, oh, it's harder to differentiate with AI content in ABM were saying, we don't have those systems in place. We haven't got people overseeing anything. We haven't got that kinds of alignment. So hearing that is like very reassuring, I think.
Absolutely. I think the first couple of years of the AI boom were just like, what can I write? And now I think we've just embarked on a new stage that is, what systems can I create? And I think this is going to be a much more advantageous use of our time, of building systems, of giving it context and knowledge, and then understanding the problems we want to solve with it. And so I think we're at this really interesting inflection point, especially with ABM, where we have all these signals and all this input and all these things we could potentially do. And now we really have a way to harness all that. And if we can do it right, I think we're going to see some really big winners in the space who are using AI as kind of their control center and their brain, and just multiplying what they're doing rather than using it just for output.
Yeah, no, I really like that, especially thinking about as this brain, as this system of action. You've got all of this insight and data and quality content and insights coming in, and how do you use that effectively? And I guess that kind of a good segue into my next question. What's really separating the teams using AI? Like, how are they genuinely standing out versus the ones who are just trying to keep pace? And is it a hard ability to kind of replicate, do you think?
I think the people who are figuring it out right now, they're going to get out ahead of those who are moving slowly, are hesitant to try to figure it out, who have security teams blocking them from being able to figure it out. Oh man, that's going to be a huge detriment to some of the bigger, more enterprise companies. We're going to see the smaller companies who don't have that as a barrier and don't have that kind of red tape move ahead a lot faster, just for that simple reason of access, and they don't have to ask permission quite as much as maybe a large enterprise. But I think where teams are really going to shine is the ones that have taste. So I think taste is something that you only learn through experience, through the reps, through writing really horrible things and then getting to the good stuff, to running really bad programs and learning from it. And so I think the teams who maybe don't have that experience, who are using AI to scale what is already kind of a not well thought out, or a program that really hasn't been scrutinized with someone who has taste, it's going to show, right? When you multiply something meh, you just have more meh. And
No, I really, really like your point about taste, and perhaps I hadn't thought about it in terms of like the word taste, but you're so right. You're so right. In my mind, it's taste and perspective, and maybe they are both the same. But I 100% agree with you. You know, if you're producing meh content and you use AI to scale meh content, you're just going to have meh responses. And I think that's a huge differentiating factor. And again, it comes back to what you're saying with like having the human in the loop. You know, we've got this content we can produce, we've got these insights. Okay, how good is that really? You know, what is that doing for us? Is it separating us from everyone else? And again, I feel like this is a nice kind of segue into another question I had for you. Is there's a version of AI adoption that looks like progress from the outside for organizations, more content, more campaigns, more activity, but isn't really moving the needle. My question is, how does a leader recognize that their program's falling into that trap, and what kind of call can they make to rebuild rather than optimize meh, as you?
It's so funny, Aaron. We just had a call yesterday as a marketing team where we had this aha moment where we're all kind of doing our own thing with AI, which is great. We're all experimenting, we're all learning, we're all building systems that benefit our own kind of silos. But that's where the rub is, right? We're in our own silos. Each of us is at a kind of a different comfort level with AI, and we're the way we're using it isn't allowing us to solve problems together and learn from one another. And so we had this meeting yesterday where we decided we're going to start working as a team to decide one problem we want to solve collectively with AI, and we're going to build the system together so we can all learn from each other how each of us is thinking about AI, using AI, building those systems. And then we're going to build a system together that helps all of marketing do something really interesting, whether it's something repetitive that just slows us down, or something really important that just could be done so much faster if we all put our brains together and built a system. Notice I'm not saying content creation, right? Like we're a system of action that's going to allow us just to think smarter and move a little faster. So, and we're going to do it as a team. So I think that's maybe a differentiator, is take a look at, are the people in your team using AI to benefit themselves kind of selfishly? Are you using it as kind of one mind to really understand how it could behoove your entire team, move you closer to your goals, build more pipeline?
Yeah, I feel like what you say is such a good perspective to have in terms of how you progress an organization with AI, you know, building those systems of action, working as a collective to actually make something that benefits everyone, as opposed to individual tools kind of siloed. And I feel like we were at that point maybe 3 or 4 years ago, people very much saying, oh yeah, we've got these tools, we're going to use them because it does X, Y, Z, but it wasn't really benefiting the rest of the org. So you kind of had like shadow AI, shadow IT. I know those were phrases kind of thrown around a lot. I think that activate. Sorry, please.
I was going to say, it keeps those on your team who maybe are less comfortable or a little intimidated by AI, uncomfortable and intimidated by AI, right? They aren't seeing how anyone else is using it. They're trying some things, maybe it's helping them a little bit, but they could, you know, multiply that superpower, get more comfortable, really build something that, you know, not only they could use, but could be a cross-functional or cross-team system if we work on this together. And so that's what we're finding for our team.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I guess, I wanted to talk a bit about that activation aspect, because obviously, you know, you've got the system of action, and sales and marketing kind of alignment has been something that's been debated for as long as both functions have existed. And I guess in an AI powered ABM program, where activation decisions are maybe being made by systems rather than people. What does a good system look like in your opinion, and how often do you see it in practice?
So our demand gen marketer just presented me his Q2 plan
Mhm,
this week. And it was AI was very heavily involved in creating it.
mhm,
But I think the thing that really blew my mind was the depth that it went into, that he had it go into.
yeah,
And that could only have happened from the input that he gave it. So he
mhm,
was able to really build some interesting skills and artifacts around how he thinks as a demand gen marketer and what our tool set is capable of,
mhm,
and knowing what our goals were and knowing the budgets we had and our ICP, right? And all of that coming together, everything that's usually just in his brain
right,
now being stored in a system that he can now kind of interrogate and poke holes in his own beliefs,
mm,
right?
yeah,
And that was fascinating to me, that he kind of set his ego aside a bit to build something with Claude,
mhm,
and use it to really understand, like, is my frame of reference, is the way that I'm thinking about this correct? And can we kind of have a conversation, Mr. Robot, about
mm,
how this could work for us? What are the areas that, based on historical data that I've given you, maybe we should double down on, maybe we should kill, right? And so I think it takes a lot of the emotion out of decision
mm,
making. It allows you to kind of build a second brain and really understand, like, your thought process, but
mhm,
also have a very objective kind of layer sitting on top of it to bounce back and forth with, which I think is really fascinating. So very much a duplication or multiplication of one person's kind of ability to strategize and problem solve,
mhm.
um, and scale kind of their perspective.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's fascinating. I think it's probably like one of the most pertinent use cases that we'll probably see come
Yeah.
out in tech in general, in the ABM space. I think practitioners have a lot of strategic understanding and intricacies, what they understand about the market, that they can't execute at scale, and AI has kind of given them that. And as you say, that objective viewpoint, the ability to say, these are the things that I think. What can you tell me about what I have? How can we extend that further? I think there's a
Yeah,
tremendous amount of value in that.
absolutely.
And then what we're also seeing is kind of like how, with regards to the kind of agentic aspect of AI, is sort of taking what you know and understanding, putting it into a system of action, and being, as you say, the human in the loop. The organizations that are doing that are finding more satisfaction with their ABM program overall. That's another thing that we see coming out of the data. So obviously, we're kind of trending in the right direction, but it's obviously a very hard thing to build.
It takes time that, a lot of people, I think, would say it's just faster if I do the thing, right? It's kind of the age old, you could hire maybe a junior marketer to come kind
Mhm,
of do all of the transactional, kind of get things over the line for you. But, like, it's just faster if I do it myself.
mhm,
That's so much time up front, right? I think the same is true with AI, where you have to take the time to sit down
mhm,
and build the really solid inputs and the data foundations, and feed it the context that it's going to need. And that upfront work is always going to pay dividends in the
mhm,
end. But the time it takes to actually create that, you do have to kind of put a couple things on hold and figure out, like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on this and I'm going to create this thing, because it is going to then allow us to move a whole lot
mhm,
faster in the
mhm.
future.
hmm Absolutely, 100% agree. Jess, I wanted to switch tracks just slightly. We mentioned before about all the insights that teams have available to them now that they can feed into their programs. I wanted to talk a
Yeah.
bit about buying signals, and how teams kind of act on those now, because obviously the window between intent and action is very narrow. It closes very quickly, and kind of what we found in the data is that whilst most ABM programs can identify and detect signals, they can't act same day that signal fires. And I want to understand from you maybe what your thoughts are. What's really behind that, and is AI something that can solve it?
So I think one of the major things that's behind that is that most ABM programs are running at an account level still and haven't yet gotten down to that contact level. Being at that contact level of signals and um, running your account-based marketing program on top of let me say that again. Running your ABM program on top of contact level information is one of the things that helps you respond same day, move faster, and get your message in front of the exact right person instead of trying to guess who. AI is incredibly helpful there, right? That you can see the signal, spin up the message, kind of understand where they're at, and put that message in front of them very quickly, where at the account level, you're spending that time trying to figure out actually who to go after. And so I think a lot of that is just kind of a depth of data problem, that people are still stuck at that account level and haven't yet made it to the contact level.
Yeah, no, interestingly, that was another thing that we kind of called out in the research, that data, quality of data is kind of one of the bottlenecks that organizations have, despite it being like an operational priority. It ended up sitting below like 3 other priorities for organizations, despite it being like the number 1 or number 2 bottleneck in the study. So it's quite ironic. But yeah, I think you're 100% right. That contact level insight and creating content that kind of aligns with that contact level insight is the easiest way to connect with people and provide an experience that's actually worth them kind of clicking on. And I guess this kind of brings me into another question I wanted to ask, is kind of like around the orchestration of experiences and campaign-based ABM. We're kind of seeing the shift away from, let's spin up a campaign because we want to go after this account, to having like an always-on repeatable kind of program. But they're two like very fundamental different ways of looking at ABM. So why is the majority of the market kind of still on campaigns, and should we be shifting towards orchestrating always-on experiences?
I think that there is those two types of campaigns are really beneficial to each other. It's a symbiotic relationship between the two, and they will both work so much better if the two are happening at the same time. That's what we do at Vector. We're running kind of always on big brand awareness at the contact level. And then we're also taking those buying signals, we're understanding the message that needs to match to that signal, and we're running those very campaign kind of pointed plays at much more segmented audiences, again, at the contact level. So, and we're seeing, we're running kind of a surround sound campaign right now on LinkedIn and CTV through LinkedIn, where we're getting television commercials in front of folks, we're getting thought leadership ads in front of folks, we're getting very specific kind of product benefit value messaging in front of folks, all the same people, because we're running it at the contact level. And we're seeing, 40% increases in traffic, 40% increases in pipeline, because we're running both of these kind of things at the same time. Sometimes it's the signal that is really, excuse me, let me say that again. Sometimes it's the signal message match that really gets someone to go, oh, I was just thinking about this. Maybe that's the solution to my problem. And sometimes it's the bigger play of, how are these guys on TV? That's like, it's the media is the message. And so there are different kind of emotions that you're trying to evoke from people, and you can't evoke both of them if you don't have both of those types of running.
Yeah. No, I love that. Just, I think it's so important to be on the appropriate channels, to have a message that resonates across all of those channels. And as I say, the media is the message. I think if you're empowering people to look at something and say, this looks like something I can use, something I need, as opposed to writing really long and verbose kind of content about it, I think that has such more emotional value to someone when they see that, and it's all around them on a consistent basis.
I think let me just double click on one thing here too, Aaron, which is, I think I came up in content marketing. I've led content marketing teams, and I think kind of the old way of thinking about it was the founder or the CEO has a point of view, and we need to translate that point of view into some sort of piece of content. We need to get that piece of content in front of the market. And now it's very much, we're seeing these signals, and these signals need to dictate the types of content that we're creating, so that we can then outreach to the right people with that piece of content, right? Like the buyer behavior is driving content creation and campaign programming and messaging more than ever before. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. It's so interesting to see how the market's kind of flipped on its head. As you say, look, you get a viewpoint from the CEO, like someone in the C-suite. It's like, I want to say this about X, Y, Z. And now we're very much at a point where the market is dictating what they want to see, what they want to hear. And obviously, as you said, we get the signals in, we can act on those signals. You know, we've got a great degree of granularity. We can use the AI to scale our messaging. We've got the human in the loop to make sure it all sounds good, that it's reaching the right kinds of people. I think we're at a very fascinating kind of inflection point with where content is and where ABM is. And I do feel that ABM is going to become like the standard. I think we won't even call it ABM anymore. I think it'll just be the baseline level of expectation that we have these targeted experiences for everyone that resonates deeply with them, that's interesting, insightful.
Absolutely. It will just be the way, right?
Yeah.
We have the information now, we have the data, we have the technology for that to just be the way that we market. It is so much more efficient. It is so much more tailored and personal. It's helping us to meet the expectations of our buyers, that the messaging and the marketing that we're presenting to them is that tailored personal experience.
100%, 100%. Jess, I have one last question for you, if I may.
Yeah.
If you were to advise anyone or provide any kind of suggestions or tips about someone starting their ABM program or looking to scale it effectively in 2026, what would your advice be for them?
I think first and foremost is figure out if you are ready, if you are kind of at that maturity level to get to the contact level. That feels like one of the most important steps now and moving into the future, to really understand who it is you need to get your ads, outreach, whatever it is in front of. So I think that would be like a really major first step in my mind, especially for those who are already running pretty solid demand gen or ABM programs at the account level. You have the mindset down, you understand the process. Now you just need to get yourself that one layer deeper.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Jess, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Aaron. Amazing question, as always.